ask ourselves questions. I think that's just such a big thing. We have to we have to learn to get into places and ask ourselves questions and really come up with some answers. And one thing I notice is the habit of it helps you fine tune the practice of it. Just even the practice of it helps you fine tune the ability to do it. Because at first it feels very impossible when you first start asking yourself questions to really think you're going to get somewhere and get answers.
Yeah, well, to begin with, you don't necessarily get, you don't get going very quickly.
Right.
Right? And that's, again, you have to have some patience with yourself when you first take those stumbling steps. You said that since we've talked last, that, your life has progressed positively. Is that the case?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And so to what do you attribute that? What have you been doing right, or what have you been doing wrong less?
Well, one thing that's helped me, I think, is just I've had more exposure to people that are more capable in a lot of different fields than myself. So I think that's made part of me want to rise to the occasion a little bit more. Not to be equals to them or anything, but just it's made me a little more worldly, I think, in some ways. In other ways, my brother made me promise I would go to therapy even if I didn't want to. So that's made me have to commit to going and speaking to a therapist every week. So that makes me have to just talk about stuff a little more. And I think slowly in some of those moments I've had to I've had moments where if I'm really feeling something, I'll kind of ask myself, well, what am I feeling right now? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling disappointed? Am I feeling dejected? Am I feeling tired? I just start to really kind of it's almost like using a metal detector over my feelings when I ask questions. And then sometimes one of the words will kind of spark up and be like, okay, I'm feeling dejected. And then why? Who's making you feel dejected? What's making you feel dejected? It's almost like I'm like Sherlock Holmes, but I'm the crime scene.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Well, that is exactly that process by which knowledge emerges that I was referring to before. It's like you have an emotion, but you don't even necessarily know what it is.
Yeah, it's just a clue. It's like bubbles that come up in a river or bubbles that come up in a lake.
Right.
And sometimes there's a monster down there, dude, and that gets scary when you start to really get some of the answers. You're like, oh my God. And some of them will make me just sometimes break down crying because it'll be such a real unearthing of something that I didn't know was going on inside of me.
Yes, well, that's another reason why people don't look, is that there's a monster in the depths, and that metaphor of the bubbles, that's a perfect symbolic representation. The depth, because look, you can't see what's in the depth. So the depth is what's unknown. And something lurks in the unknown. And when the emotions arise, as you mentioned, it's a manifestation of something that's underneath. You can see this you see this very clearly in intimate relationships, where one person will get annoyed at the other for some minor transgression, and soon they'll be fighting about something that happened or didn't happen 10 years ago, and then they'll get to the point where they're investigating the structure of the entire relationship. And then that'll stop people from ever having a dispute at all, because they're so terrified that any pathway into a dispute will lead down into, is this relationship worthwhile? That's actually part of the reason I think that it's useful to have divorce difficult, if not forbidden. Because otherwise, that question, it's like, do you really want to be tortured by that question for the rest of your life? At some point, it's nice to just say, well, I'm not going to go there. That's off the table.